いい天気じゃないか。もっと早くそう思ってたら、まあ、いっぱい殺しておいて、虫が良すぎるよな。
Those were the last words uttered by Zeke Yeager, once a monster but now a man. A character who, for most of the story, was hated for what he did to Erwin, to Grisha, to even Falco. And yet, there always was a hint of humanity within him, even during his moments as the beast that guides humanity towards the dark sunset that is his view of this cruel, cruel world. Us human beings are constantly challenged, given a reason to give up. Sometimes death feels like a greater fate than life. Sometimes we just want to sleep and take breaks from our lives, and enjoy true peace. Peace itself is the result of hellfire plaguing this world, for why would such a word be needed if the world wasn't an inherently chaotic place defined by its cruelty, but also by its beauty? Zeke Yeager is a character who has fascinated me and many others ever since he was first introduced as the enigmatic, intimidating, and slightly playful Beast Titan in the early arcs of the Attack on Titan manga and anime franchise. And now that said anime has finally concluded, I decided it would be fitting to finally make a character analysis, focusing on my favorite character in the entire series, and one of my favorites in any anime and manga. I've been a fan of Zeke ever since he was first introduced, and I've watched him grow and evolve from just a mysterious, antagonistic force of nature to a genuinely complex and deep human whose arc is filled with many philosophical ideas and principles, which all come together to create a fascinating conclusion on the meaning of life and humanity itself. I think that many misunderstand the true depth and complexity of Zeke Yeager, and that's a shame because he is arguably the most consistent and tightly written character in the story, even surpassing Eren in some areas. Exploring the journey and mentality of Zeke Yeager is no easy feat. He is one of the most complex, mysterious, and overall intriguing characters Isayama has ever put to the page, and therefore in order to truly understand how he thinks and what his character is about thematically, a keen eye and a willingness to dive into the psychology of this broken young man who has been treated like dirt his whole life are required. I have been wanting to do this video for a long time, but I held off on it due to the anime not being complete. Now I have no reason to delay it. I want everyone in this fandom to see this video, so if you enjoy it, please share it with others and spread it across the fandom so more people see it. Zeke is a character that has many subtle and unclear nuances about him that I would like to explain and analyze in this video, so I hope you guys like it and support it, as it is one of the videos I've put the most passion into making. So, without further ado, let's explore the contradictions of Zeke Yeager. The earliest chronological moment of Zeke's life that we see, aside from seeing him briefly as a baby, is Grisha asking him if he wants to leave the internment zone. Zeke responds yes, obviously, but with a lot of reluctance on his face, or at least that's how I read his expression at this moment. Anyways, what really matters here is that Grisha plants a seed in Zeke's head, the seed that he hopes will guide Zeke to finally achieving freedom for all Eldians. However, as we continue to see glimpses of Zeke's childhood, it quickly becomes obvious that he never truly wanted to be Eldia's hero. The way Grisha talks to him, "Zeke, you are going to save everyone," is firm and forceful, almost manipulative, as if he is pushing his wishes for Zeke onto him, as if the outcome of Zeke's destiny is already decided. He will be Eldia's hero. But it is quickly pointed out by Tom Zaver that Zeke lacks the desperation and fighting spirit to become an honorary Marleyan that the other trainees have, highlighting the fact that he is the odd one out. One important thing to mention is the fact that Grisha isn't just manipulative towards Zeke. There are moments where he genuinely shows affection to him, but that affection always comes alongside a statement cementing his wish for Zeke becoming a warrior. Zeke had a loving father who was too caught up in his own dreams to understand what Zeke truly wanted for himself. Grisha refused to see Zeke as he was, but instead Zeke the idealized version that he created in his head the moment he was born. That is what causes Zeke's self-worth issues. Zeke is constantly reminded by his parents that he will become a warrior, he will save Eldia. His path is already decided, and what Zeke struggles with is the reality that he simply can't meet those expectations. That isn't who he is, and that scares him, because he wants to make his parents happy, and the only way to do that is to become a warrior, despite it bringing him so much pain and hardship, and he moves forward anyway just to feel worthy of their love. What really messes up Zeke's mindset, however, is a very overlooked part of his backstory, which is his relationship with his grandparents. Zeke's grandparents almost seem like his true parents in a sense. When returning to Liberio in the present times, he greets them happily, and in his backstory, his dynamic with them is no different. Zeke's mind is split in half due to being fed both Grisha's beliefs about Eldia and being pushed to serve his people, and being fed Marley's beliefs about Eldia by his grandparents. Zeke is shown two truths by two parties he trusts, and this shatters his young mind. He loves his parents, but they always leave him, saying he will understand one day, and he loves his grandparents, who question his parents' decisions in raising him. This is the most overlooked part of Zeke's childhood. He is broken because he is a child who can't understand nuance and can't comprehend that conflict isn't so black and white. He is forced to see this conflict through both sides, and he can't understand it. And that makes his relationship with his parents incredibly rocky due to his grandparents actually taking the time to care for him more than they do. He is more drawn to them regardless of what they say, because Grisha and Diana never took the time to raise him properly before teaching him about Eldia's history, unlike his grandparents who actually treat him like a kid and a son. Zeke's grandparents even ask him if he really wants to become a warrior for Mali, and Zeke only says yes after glancing at a picture of Faye, Grisha's dead sister, someone who served as one of Grisha's main motivations for becoming an Eldian restorationist, and someone who he surely told Zeke about countless times, using it as a way to push Zeke to become a warrior. To contrast Zeke's grandparents' concern and care for Zeke, Isayama shows us a heartbreaking moment of Zeke seeing a father and child playing ball in the street, and going to Grisha to ask if they can do the same. And of course, Grisha just says that they can do a lot of studying today. He doesn't even hear Zeke out, and just assumes Zeke wants to study. After that, we see said studying session, where Grisha tells Zeke information that likely contradicts what his grandparents have told him, yet Zeke still agrees because he wants to be acknowledged and praised by Grisha. After that, we see Magath berating Zeke and telling him that if he doesn't have the drive, he should leave, showing that despite being content with his life, Zeke still doesn't have the desire to truly become a warrior. He doesn't have it in him. At which point he finally finds what truly gives his life meaning. His days of playing catch with Mr. Zeva. Zeva acts as Zeke's true father figure throughout his childhood. Even in their very first meeting, Zeva points out that Zeke would be a natural pitcher. Perhaps this is Isayama's way of highlighting that Zeke isn't naturally meant to be a warrior or a shifter, but that he is meant to be a pitcher but isn't allowed by outside forces to pursue that talent he has. I don't know, it's just a thought. Another key moment contrasting the warm and welcoming atmosphere in Zeke and Zeva's interactions and Zeke and Grisha's interactions is when Zeke comes home from playing ball with Zeva, and is written off when he announces his presence to Grisha, who is in a meeting with his other restorationist friends. A meeting in which Zeke once again hears that his father's plans are dependent on his own abilities, and when Grisha finally notices Zeke peeping through the door, he tells him that Zeke can do it because he is their child after all, showing that Grisha believes Zeke has to succeed because he is their son, not acknowledging Zeke as his own person. Zeke then finally returns to Magath and announces that he wants to be a warrior, and once again he lags behind his peers. A disappointed Grisha walks away, with only Zeva sparing a sympathetic look of pity. Zeke has finally found something that makes him happy, but once again his father pushes him to do something he doesn't want to do, in the process only hurting Zeke's view of himself and making him feel like he's the problem. Shown when he tells Zeva the next day, in response to his comments that Zeke didn't look like he wanted to become a warrior. That he had to become a warrior, but he was no good. A tragically sad statement that Zeke believed. However, after Zeke says that, Zeva tells him something that shakes him to his very core. That it's stupid for Zeke to become a warrior. That Zeke would sacrifice his life and hurt other people. For what reason would he do something as stupid as that? Zeke has no response. Instead, he just asks Zeva why he became a warrior. And Zeva answers with the fact that hate and conflict seem so trivial and ridiculous compared to the mysteries of the universe. ZekeYeager has a goal well beyond the trivial matters of hateful people, who just act on impulse. He's just a decent person, like Zeke, with a dream, who wants no part in this nonsense conflict, and that helps Zeke realize that even if he can't leave the internment zone, he will at least be alive. Even stuck sweeping floors for Molly, he is content. He just wants to live a normal life, that is all he wants. And when he finds out that his parents are in danger, he warns them, telling them not to do such dangerous things, because even after all the pain they have put him through, he still loves them. He still wants to live a normal and happy life with them, no matter what circumstances there are that prevent that. Zeke is a passive and quiet person who has no desire to fight, but he is forced to, and when he goes against what he's been taught, he's yelled at, reminded of what happened to Faye by Grisha, and once again denied the chance at happiness by Grisha, who cannot think of what his son wants, only his own wishes. This leads Zeke to finally give up and tell ZekeYeager everything. He gives up and accepts that he will be sent to Paradise and turned into a Titan, and even then he finds comfort in the fact that he could play catch with Mr. ZekeYeager, and thanks him for all the precious moments they shared. This makes Mr. ZekeYeager push Zeke to let go of his parents and secure a peaceful life for him and his more loving grandparents. He is told they have done awful things to him, and he ends up going through with what ZekeYeager told him. Once again, he is pushed to do something he at first doesn't want to do, because in the end, Zeke is a good kid, and he never wanted any of this, but this cruel world forced him to do things he never would have done otherwise, because at heart, he just wanted a happy and peaceful life. And in betraying his parents, he finally gets that happy life for a short while. Even stuck inside the walls of Liberio, he is happy just playing catch with ZekeYeager. And finally, we now arrive at the most important moment in Zeke's life. Up until this point, Zeke has been pushed to do things he doesn't want to do by outside influences. He's never had a say in his future. Even Mr. ZekeYeager made him betray his parents despite him not wanting to. And that was because ZekeYeager understood that Zeke was a good kid who deserved to have a normal life. And now, on his last legs, ZekeYeager explains that despite having given his life to die a quick death, despite having suffered so much pain, losing his wife and child, he has no regrets in devoting himself to his research, although never having been born at all would have made things so much easier. This one declaration by ZekeYeager inspires Zeke to save all Eldians. Zeke wants a normal life, but seeing ZekeYeager in this pathetic state helps him realize that even with the illusion of a normal and happy life, this cruel world will always make it so you wish you were never born. And that makes Zeke want to help all the children of the future escape the curse that is birth via the euthanasia plan. Zeke does indeed become a warrior to save Eldia, but in a way Grisha never wanted him to. He wants to show mercy to everyone broken by the cruel world, in spite of his desire to live a life reveling in the beauty of it. And frankly, that is extremely tragic to me. Now we move on to Zeke's actual role in the present day story of AOT. Before we get to his actions as the Beast Titan, it is important to talk about Zeke's relationship with Eren, or lack thereof. We see the moment where he first learns of Eren, and concludes that he is Grisha's son. This moment reveals something very important about Zeke, and it's that he can't let go of the past. Even after having been set free from the burden Grisha placed on him, Zeke is still haunted by the emotional abuse and manipulation that Grisha enacted upon him in his childhood. Due to this, after having learnt that Grisha had a second son, Zeke develops a sort of hero complex and projects his own suffering onto this false idea he has of Eren. He believes Grisha brainwashed and used Eren just like he did to Zeke, not even considering the possibility of him having changed or evolved. Zeke is still the same broken child he used to be, and he's screaming out for anyone to share the same pain he does. He finds that with Mr. ZekeYeager, and when he's gone he tries to find that in Eren, and projects his own feelings onto him because he wants someone to understand him in his lonely, miserable and isolated life. The first time we actually see Zeke in the main story, we already understand that he is not like the other shifters we have met. Zeke isn't aggressive like Eren, he isn't cold and calculating like Annie, and he isn't even mindlessly driven by hunger like the Pure Titan. Instead, the Beast Titan appears as a rather jovial and friendly Titan, or at least he can be seen as that in this moment, as being beyond a normal being with normal emotions. The Beast Titan is like an ethereal godlike superior being. He seems to look down on humans, he seems to look down on Mikkei, and has an attitude of curiosity throughout their encounter. He comments on the ODM gear, not even knowing what it is. He displays confusion and embarrassment, even enthusiasm. Overall, he just appears to be something far beyond a normal Titan. He appears as something truly terrifying, something intelligent, something that knows all but at the same time knows nothing, and something that can be friendly and enthusiastic one moment and ruthless and uncaring the next. Basically, all I'm really trying to say is that the Beast Titan leaves a chilling first impression and catches your attention right away as one of the most compelling and mysterious characters in the whole story. The subsequent times we see the human form of the Beast Titan, who remains unnamed and who lacks screen time, we slowly get more hints about who he truly is. At first, he is a cold, mysterious and terrifying yet totally human monster, and as we see him more of his humanity shines through. For example, while his first appearance in human form has the classic anime blocked out glasses look as a way to cloud the character and make him more mysterious, the more we see him, the less obscure his eyes are, and therefore we see more of his emotions and he just feels more relatable. We begin to see him as more of a human rather than this otherworldly being he was before. Another example is after his flashback conversation with Reiner and Berthold before the Battle of Shiganshina begins, where he sips his cup of coffee and loudly exclaims that it is hot. This is an incredibly small and insignificant detail, but it sort of makes him more relatable and more human in a way. He actually feels pain and other sensations that we face on a daily basis. He isn't a monster, he's a person, and as the battle progresses we see that more and more. Before we get the actual battle, another subtle characterization moment for Zeke in this same conversation is when he says he wants to put an end to this cursed history, dismissing Annie's life. This basically shows us that Zeke is just tired of the same cycle being repeated, and he just can't bring himself to care about the lives of others. Because to him, as we have already established, life is suffering, and the only way to escape that suffering is to never be born, which is why he doesn't care about Annie despite her being his comrade. As he is chucking rocks at the cornered scouts right outside Shiganshina, it is quickly made apparent that the Beast Titan sees this as a game. He is playing a game of baseball, which is an excellent piece of foreshadowing, might I add. This once again makes him a more human character. He feels excitement, he feels frustration as he sees the scouts dying in vain, because to him their lives are meaningless. He sees them as ants and ignorant. He almost pities them, but I'll get to that in the next part. Anyways, after he loses his cool, he even talks to himself and says, "You don't want to become your father," which is a great piece of foreshadowing too, but also shows that he is unwilling to lose himself and instead prefers to enjoy life. Zeke sees life as meaningless and gets passionate about the scouts continuing to fight. He thinks they should just give up like he has and stop caring about this cruel world. And he stops himself from feeling that way, instead of choosing to just go with the flow and enjoy his perfect game, because he wants to emotionally detach himself from his sins, showing his humanity and inability to really care and comprehend what he is doing. That is the main contradiction of Zeke's character. He says he wants to be rid of all the suffering he has gone through. He wants to save humanity, and he thinks the greatest freedom in this world is to have never been born at all. And yet he still enjoys his life, because from the very beginning of his life, all Zeke ever wanted was a normal and happy life. Even trapped in the internment zone, he was content and satisfied. Yes, he enjoys life, and goes with the flow, berating himself for getting too passionate and caught up in the moment, choosing to instead just pretend it's all a game, because that's what gives him comfort. Zeke doesn't realize it yet, but he does enjoy life. Even with his nihilistic outlook, he finds comfort in the little things, like baseball, and uses them to shield himself from the suffering he is inflicting onto others. He is almost like a big child in this scene. He doesn't value the life of the scouts because of his worldview, but he's also a normal human, and so he chooses to embrace what keeps him calm and happy, instead of truly confronting the reality, because deep down, Zeke is still a kid who doesn't want to embrace the cruelty of this world, but who has been forced to, and so he latches on to the little things that keep him sane. Finally, Zeke makes his final appearance in the Return to Shiganshina arc, confronting Eren in the aftermath of the battle. Here, Zeke alludes to the idea of Eren being brainwashed by his father, which foreshadows his own backstory and showcases how he projects his own struggles onto Eren, just like how Grisha projected his own desires onto Zeke. Zeke ironically acts like his father here by simply assuming that Eren is just like him, forgetting that he is a different person. To summarize all this, the Beast Titan is presented as ruthless and inhuman at first, not valuing the lives of others. But as he appears more, he is humanized more, And by the end of RTS, it is clear he is basically a man-child who pretends to play games as he murders people and berates himself when he gets too passionate about the actual reality of the situation. He sees life as meaningless, and so he feels no remorse for his victims, but he also chooses to act as if he's playing baseball while killing, showing that despite him not caring about how his actions affect others, he still wants to embrace the little things that make him happy without realizing it, because deep down, Zeke is still that kid who just wanted a normal life. That is basically the foundation of Zeke's character, and it is explored a hell of a lot more in Season 4, which I will cover now. What is life? To some, it is the idea, the concept that keeps us going despite all the suffering we face. To some, it is a right, a gift to be maintained and to be protected. And to Zeke, it is suffering, specifically if you are an Eldian. All suffering in the world, even the suffering of non-Eldians, is caused by Eldians. And so Zeke concludes that ending the Eldian race will end suffering. Zeke is a man who hates his own race, and so he believes the only way to save the world and absolve the future generations of the fear of said race is to erase it from existence. Zeke, in a way, is trying to save Eldia, just as Grisha wanted him to, but he is also going against Grisha's goals of maintaining Eldia's freedom, instead trying to sacrifice the freedom of Eldians for the freedom of the world, but still allowing the remaining Eldians in this world to experience freedom, if for a short while. This shows us that Zeke doesn't really see death as freedom, but more so sees the end of the Titan curse as the ultimate freedom, which is why he doesn't just kill all Eldians, but instead wants to end the Titans and give the last remaining Eldians long lives before the curse finally dies out and the future generations of Eldians can escape the curse of being born in this cruel yet beautiful world. To summarize that, Zeke, deep down, doesn't truly think life is meaningless, as he subconsciously embraces the things that give him comfort. But the abuse he went through, and the influences of the forces around him, conditioned him to think that way and seek out a way to end suffering once and for all. Meanwhile, Eren, his narrative foil, isn't like that at all. Eren is naturally driven to pursue his goals. He was never forced or indoctrinated like Zeke thought. Zeke is longing for connection due to his isolation and loneliness after the death of Xavier, and he tries to find that connection in Eren. But in Eren he only finds that he is the architect of his own suffering. He is a child still haunted by his dead father. His plan is built upon his desire to reject the wishes of said father, and to embrace the wishes of his true father Xavier, who, ironically, was the one who influenced him to think this way. Eren highlights that behind Zeke's facade of sophistication, his desire to free the world from Eldians, but also help Eldians experience freedom. He really is just a child who wants connection and a normal life, but who never got that. A child who wants to validate himself and his views. A child looking to prove that he is not alone, that he is not the only one who thinks this way. And that breaks Zeke. Eren keeps moving forward towards his goals and fights the cruel world, fights against fate. He is the opposite of Zeke, who instead accepts the reality of the world, and simply thinks that Eldians should just lay down and let themselves go extinct, to end this cursed history of hatred, only further progressed by Grisha's actions. After Zeke's insecurities are revealed by Eren, and Zeke begins to understand that while Eren wasn't indoctrinated by Grisha, Grisha showed him true love, learning from the mistakes he made in raising Zeke. Zeke tries one last time to stop Eren, driven by his father's passionate words, and yet he fails, and so Zeke falls even further into despair. Zeke, at this point, has not even a single shred of hope. He is completely and utterly alone. He has accepted that humanity is doomed to repeat the same mistakes. Maybe in the past, Grisha could have finally realized what really mattered in life, but at this point he cannot be saved. That would have been the case, had Armin not finally showed him what life is truly about. Armin explains to Zeke that while life isn't perfect, nothing is perfect, the world isn't perfect, it's still here for us, it's still trying the best it can. And that is what makes it so damn beautiful. That is what it means to live. Humanity is a species driven by the curse known as fear, but it can always grow beyond that fear, and grow beyond its nature to kill, to hate. Armin is the freest character in Attack on Titan because of that, and he helps Zeke realize this same beautiful truth. All this time, Zeke thought that Grisha couldn't have changed, that he couldn't have learned from his mistakes, But in the end, he finally realizes that anyone can change, that anyone can grow beyond what they are destined to be, because they were born into this world, not with any predetermined purpose, but with the right to live for themselves. And Zeke, even having grown up without that luxury, chooses to embrace that truth, to embrace the fact that all he ever wanted was to play catch, and embrace the fact that life is what you make of it. Zeke's final words are words of relief, relief that he could have had this realization and died for the sake of future generations. This time not to end their suffering, but to ensure that they live to find meaning just as he has. The world is cruel, but also very beautiful, and that is the absolute truth and meaning of life. Overall, Zeke Yeager is a man defined by his contradictions. He sees life as meaningless, yet he embraces the little pleasures he finds in it, because deep down all he really wants is freedom from the burdens that have been forced upon him. Zeke is a slave to Grisha's influence. Every action he takes is to distance himself from Grisha and to reject him. He subconsciously chooses to embrace the little pleasures in life because he wants to avoid confronting the harsh reality of his sins and to keep himself sane. He doesn't want to be like Grisha, a man so focused on his grand ambitions that he cannot see what is in front of him. However, ironically, Zeke falls into that very same trap. He has the grand goal of saving everyone, yet all he truly wants is to enjoy life. And while he does embrace the little pleasures that he finds, he never feels that sense of freedom, because he only enjoys life to spite and go against his father, and keep himself from being crushed by the weight of his burdens, never finding the answer himself. He only finds it at the end. Zeke just wants what we all want, connection and the ability to enjoy life. He had all of those things at one point, but of course this cruel world took them away, and that breaks him. In my opinion, all Zeke really needed all along was someone to understand him. Zeke knows that himself, which is why he so desperately craves that in Eren. But Eren only manages to shatter Zeke's own perception of himself. He reveals the insecurities that Zeke has deep down, and ironically that helps Zeke become who he was meant to be. He helps Zeke realize that he never needed to do all this because of Grisha, that he never needed to try to be what he wasn't because of his trauma, but instead, all he needed to be was himself. And all he needed to do was embrace life like he always wanted to, and always did but never like he could, realizing that he would have been happy just playing catch, and that he would have been at peace had Grisha, Marley and Zaven never made him into this twisted nihilist, was ultimate freedom for Zeke. And to me, that is the perfect conclusion for his character. Zeke will always be my favorite character in Attack on Titan, and he will always be one that I come back to when I think about characters in media that have in some way shaped me, and I will always remember his journey. That is all from me today, guys. Be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and until next time, this has been Quick Binger.
私は父にこの男にめまいのするような憎しみを覚え、それ以上に自分の愚かさを呪った。
いいか、ジーク。マーレの人間が言っていることは全て間違っている。だがお前は誰よりもマーレの教えに従順に従わなければならない。
エルディアの屈辱はあなたが晴らすのよ。
うん、わかった。
トム・クサバー。本業は巨人学の研究者だ。ほら、君の名前は？
ジーク・イエーガーです。
ボール1個分高かったか。あ、そこ置いといて。まあ、初級は様子見で。目指すはパーフェクトゲームだ。
生きる目的とは増えることだ。この砂も石ころも水も増えようとはしない。だが生命は今日も増えようと必死だ。何せ死や種の絶滅は増える目的に反する。そのために恐怖という罰則があり、あの子もその苦しみから逃れようと必死だった。くそー！こんなはずじゃ！そんなこと言わないで。あそこは一生懸命頑張ったでしょ。 ただ投げて、取って、また投げる。ただ、それを繰り返す。何の意味もない。でも、確かに、俺はずっと、キャッチボールをしているだけでよかったよ。